welcome aboard. Welcome to Fishing Without Bait, a lifetime without definitive expectations, where we help people explode into their lives through full impact mindfulness. If you're welcome nowhere else, you're welcome here, the only admission price being the honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness to try. And as usual, I'm joined by my good friend, producer and co-host of this program, Mr. Mike.
Yes, more actively this time.
Indeed.
We had a lot of guests for a while here.
So, Mike, here we are nearly 1 year into the COVID pandemic.
Do we celebrate? Do we have some sort of Remembrance Day or something here in mid-March? I'm not sure.
As long as there's not too many people gathered together.
Yeah, I mean, like, on Zoom or something or FaceTime, but still.
Well, this has been a year, particularly in my line as a behavioral health therapist. I've been dealing with more and more people dealing with depression, isolation, just general overall malaise, feeling of hopelessness, and what's in front of me, what's going on. Mike, people run out of things to do.
Yes, and people are in a lot of different positions where whether it's working from home, so they're around people that they're home people more, and getting tired of looking at a screen at everybody through a webcam, or they're not working for the last year, don't know what's happening, if their movie theater is going to open, their job is going to, and just literally have nothing else to do, and hopefully being taken care of, and then there's ones that just have been having to scratch and claw this entire year to just get to the next day.
Human beings are social animals, Mike. We need contact with each other, which is one of the reasons why solitary confinement is considered cruel and unusual punishment.
Mm-hmm.
If you take a rat and isolate it away from other members of its own kind, or even contact to see people, that rat will go insane. And I think a lot of people are feeling that. Used to be called cabin fever, the claustrophobia, the term COVID fatigue, which came into play during this, is a real thing. It's a real disorder, COVID fatigue. So, as a matter of complete transparency, I had tested positive for COVID a number of weeks ago.
Interesting, Jim. So did I. And a good number of weeks ago.
Okay. Well, tell our audience about your experience, Mike.
Well, I found myself getting, coming under the weather a few weeks ago, and it kind of put me on out of action for about a week. And I was like, and to be fair, about this time of year, I usually have like a fairly severe, weather changing, sinus drainage, kind of thing, right? Chest cold, that kind of thing. Nothing real bad. I got my flu shot, and it was like, it was rough. It just felt like I was wound down because I was doing a couple of jobs, and not taking a lot of downtime. So it felt like things just caught up with me, and then I just kind of got weak for a couple of days.
Okay.
And then I was fine for a little bit. At least to the point where I'm like, okay, this is like a chest cold, and I'm going to fight through this and get back to work. About a week later, not that I wasn't working the entire time, but definitely like modified, right? And then I kind of went down again, and I had some jobs coming up where I had to see people in person. I was like, well, just I have no inkling. Everything that I've looked at, I'm checking the app every day and doing the symptom tracker, and it's like, you're probably okay. But if I feel like you got a test, but you don't really need a test, like it's like on that line, right? I'm talking with people that had COVID. I had I had multiple people that have had it before, and I'm like, well, should I be worried about this? They're like, get an O2 monitor just in case, because it's like, am I going down a path or am I fine? Kind of thing. And finally, like, I got a test like the Tuesday after I first started getting symptoms, and then was like, well, I'll get the negative test just to make sure all of my clients feel better. Because it's certainly not this thing, right? And then lo and behold, we the next morning, which was amazing because it was like, 1 to 3 days you might get a thing. I'm like, I'll get it hopefully just in time for this next gig. And I got it, and it was like, everything stopped. It was just like, okay, who have I been in contact with? Who, even if briefly, and things like that. And then it was, you know, do the hey guys, I got this, kind of thing. And it's I'm still dealing with a little bit of symptoms, to be honest, like the long haul stuff with the breathing and everything, but nothing severe.
Okay. Well, I'm sure our audience is curious to how you are today, Mike.
Tired. I'm just tired a lot. Doing shows like this where I'm hosting um take a lot out of me. I need to kind of have to stop and catch my breath every once in a while. I'm just generally just absolutely tired. Haven't hit the treadmill. I was winding up pretty good on a new fitness program before this hit me a few weeks in, and just just I'm trying to get the gumption up to get back on that, and at least do the walking for 10-20 minutes or something, right? Even if it wasn't the stepping up into the running as I was getting to before. So, but it's there, you know. But I'm still very fortunate because I know several people that have had, I think they were like November, December, have family members that have been in and out of the hospital with it here this many months later. Just talking with like two of them have inhalers now because of this.
Hmm.
Like and that's the worry, is what was going to react. I've always been worried about, what exposing you and see how you would react, and my wife and everything, and everybody else around. My mother, who was the first one to get this thing back in January, July,
Ah,
yeah, which was their first scare. And she was just like, fell off for a few days off work, and for like 3 or 4 days, and she was good. So you don't know, and you don't want to find out, I guess.
yes. Yes. It's not something you would order for Christmas.
No, 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 no.
Okay. Well, as a matter of fact, that Wednesday after we recorded, I got a text saying that, hey, I tested positive.
Hmm.
So, being a conscientious person, actually, I canceled my inpatient appointments for the rest of that day and made arrangements to do teletherapy and scheduled a rapid test the next morning, actually very early at 8 o'clock. So 30 minutes later, I wait in the parking lot. They call me and says, hey, man, you tested positive.
Hmm.
And the irony of this, Mike, that I was scheduled to get my first vaccination dose that day at noon.
And I was supposed to that Saturday after my positive.
I was a bit surprised that I tested positive.
Hmm.
However,
As I was.
I went and scheduled that day at noon a PCR mouth swab that takes 24 to 48 hours to culture. So the next day, in the afternoon, I get an email that states that, well, Mr. Ellermeyer, yes, you tested positive.
Hmm.
So, two positives. However, I was still I had a complete lack of symptoms. 3 hours later, I get a call from the Allegheny County Department of Health, where I live in Pittsburgh, informing me of same. And the young lady asked me a lot of questions. And she thanked me for being so kind to her.
Hmm.
I would probably suspect some weren't. And so the contact tracing, all those things, which was fine. That's what I was supposed to do. So I quarantined for 10 days, and actually my cats they enjoyed the company. They certainly did, and I did a lot of teletherapy. However, it just like with anything in life, Mike, when maybe there's a tragedy, maybe there's a sudden passing of a friend that was absolutely and completely unexpected. So most people momentarily grasp the clarity and the briefness of life, Mike. Okay. So there's a couple lessons that I think I've learned from this. Number one is gratitude that I didn't experience these symptoms. And number two, again, a good reminder of the briefness of life. And quite often, what I tell my patients, Mike, is to not delay their happiness, not to delay happiness. What are people waiting for?
Yeah.
When I retire, things will be better. When I do this, things will be better. No, then if you're going to retire in 5 years and you don't have to work anymore, I consider those 5 squandered years.
Well, it's like you look at the timeliness on this. There was something that was said. I think it was a Bill Gates quote when encouraging people to take the vaccines and hey, they're going to be safe, enough for everything. Is like you don't want to be the last person that died from this, you know, you, uh, when we have a vaccine, right? When we talk about, hey, are you still masking and everything like that,
Right.
and it's like you don't know, that timeliness on that kind of thing.
That's correct. So I always suggest to people, you and I have always talked about having people get a mind of knowledge
Mm-hmm.
rather than a mind of uncertainty, and always check the facts. What do I know for sure? What's right in front of me? And it's so important for people to be proactive about their health and life rather than reactive.
Yep. Yep.
When do people usually schedule an appointment with a dentist, Mike?
When they're in pain,
Yeah,
when something has happened, when the tooth has fallen
when they
out.
have a
Yeah.
toothache.
Yeah.
So quite often you and I have discussed the possibility that it's easier to prevent a riot than stop a riot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, but having people be proactive about their health is probably one of the most challenging aspects of what I do, what physicians do, what nutritionalists do, because it's not sexy.
Mm-hmm.
It's not fun. I mean, who wants to be on the safety committee at work?
Right. 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 They're the buzzkills, usually, in perception.
Yes. They're the people who want to make sure everything's stocked. They're the people who want to
Yeah.
make sure, oh gosh, another fire drill? Uh,
I as somebody and I worked with safety, as you know, before running into you several years ago,
yes.
in video production, and yeah, it was always like well, we're making things that nobody wants to watch, that kind of realization, right?
uh-huh. Yeah. Nobody wants to be on a safety committee. No one wants to be on those. It's not glamorous. It's not out front. It's not the only time. When's the only time a safety committee gets recognized?
When something gets missed,
Yes.
right? Well,
Yes.
and it isn't that along the lines of when we talk about being grateful that the car actually started that day. I
Yes.
mean, and that's exactly that kind of thing. Be grateful that you are healthy. You did not get exposed to, the pandemic over the last year. Instead of just responding to, oh no, this is happening.
So, in past episodes, we've often talked about how people usually are like fishermen and they throw out a net every day. But usually, what they haul in and remember is the negative aspects and the
Hmm.
negative experiences of that day.
And that's something that when I when I got the positive for this, I felt guilty. I
Mm,
felt because like I say, how hard. Yeah, I've been working really hard to make sure everybody's safe when they come here. The few, very, very few people when they come here, or not going to events, not doing things, trying to figure out where that line is. Like, I can't lock myself in a house because I need to work. I'm not blessed to have a job that I can just stay at home and do, right? But I'm very careful in what I am doing in person. So, even when I was under the weather, we sent somebody else to do a job for me. Like making sure that stuff is in line. Because you don't want to be responsible for something happening to something else, and then and then having this be, I've been so worried again about my mother and my wife through this entire thing, you know, and then they ended up getting it or being exposed to it because I mean that my wife has been around me all the time. We work together.
I hope so.
Yes. Well, these days, she was gone for a few months, but California, but it was on fire. But um, you know, I had this like sense of failure, and so grateful that they were the ones that I was worried about, and nothing happened with them, right? Um, definitely a count your blessings kind of thing because we know it's almost mysterious who ends up in the hospital. This 25-year-old goes, but this 70-year-old's fine. Like in maybe it's thankful that I was on sort of a health kick going into this too, that I was better than I would have been, say 8 months ago when I was probably at the worst point of this physically. um you know was eating better, was working out, and maybe that did help me a little bit in dealing with this, but who knows?
Sure. And
Who
again,
knows?
we repeat the big three: sleep, exercise, nutrition. Sleep, exercise, nutrition, being proactive and adding positives to your life, like you mentioned before. Uh, when you get in a car and you turn the key and it doesn't start, well, that can ruin your whole day. All types of things go through your mind. But 99.9% of the time, when you turn that key, your car starts and you never even think about that, saying, that's a positive. I'm glad my car started.
They would tell you the thing. I started developing this. I think it was definitely before the pandemic started, but I would go to whether these almost regular gigs where I was going to do in person pro wrestling shows, or for filming or other projects. Like if I had to take a drive somewhere, and even if it's like a day like today where it's like 30 degrees out, 40 degrees out, but there's blue sky, I would take note of the blue sky. I would sometimes say, because Missy would be with me, I was like, it's such a nice day. And she's like, what are you talking about? It's 20 degrees out there. I'm like, yes, but look. And especially, whether it be I hate driving to a gig in snow or rain and having that extra stress before the stress of doing the job. You know what I mean? And I take acknowledgement of, this is a nice easy drive. This is good. Let's enjoy this.
Well, we discussed in past episodes, and for those of you who would care to peruse some of our well over 270 episodes, one of the episodes,
280 now.
280?
Yes,
Wow.
I think we just broke 280. Yeah.
So, one of the things we talk about, Mike, is we talk about paradoxical gratitude. And paradoxical gratitude is finding a silver lining in a dark cloud.
Mm-hmm.
So, what's some paradoxical gratitude that you might have over the current situation that happened in your life?
Oh, I guess gratitude that, again, nobody had any adverse, severely adverse reactions. Even with what I'm still coping with a month later physically, that I can still do this. That I can still, do what I like to do, is being here behind this board. To be quite honest,
Sure.
this is my happy place, is being live or recording or whatever the case may be, and doing this. Or even we did this farmers conference over the weekend. That was a mix of what we do here with live and remote people, so we could be properly safe for it, for a client, and like being that I can still do that, because now it has changed my perspective, because it says, okay, what if I can't do this anymore? What happens then? What if I can't hold a camera steady at some point and run around a wrestling ring? What do I do then? So
Sure.
there's a lot of perspective happening here. But no, this is very fortunate, in how a lot of that sorted out, and that uh, Jim, my support structure, my support system is unbelievable. I told you when we were talking about, because I'm like, do I take the vaccine now? What's the protocol? I don't know. And in reading the information, when I announced my positive test, that on that Wednesday, one of the people that messaged me was a doctor in the UK.
Hmm.
Now that may sound strange right off the bat, but this doctor, 15 years ago, when I first started a little podcast, in my back room, about professional wrestling, he had visited us after that first year of the show, because he was doing some stuff in the States. He didn't just come to visit us here in
Nah.
Pittsburgh, where we're talking about wrestling on a podcast in 2006. Um, and he was a fan of the show, and somebody that we touch base with every once in a while. But it was great to have somebody that is a frontline worker, in the UK, but still, We got all different rules and protocols and things, but we're all still dealing with the same disease worldwide, right? But I got so much great advice that helped, you know, ease my mind, and even as we were talking about the vaccine idea, is like, what I don't know, you know, gave me some perspective on what to do with that and what I should be looking out for.
Sure. Well, we always want to get a mind of knowledge. And I
Mm-hmm.
always suggest to people, well, if your brakes are grinding, you generally don't go to the grocery store service counter to ask them about
I just stopped asking my wrestling friends what I should do about this. And it's even anecdotal for them because even if they had it and dealt with it, I mean, I have several friends that have been in the hospital over this thing
Sure.
and concerned over it, you know. So
Well, some silver linings in a dark cloud for me was well, my cats enjoyed the company and I was able to get some things done as I was in the house that I had been putting off for quite some time. And I was able to actually get some things accomplished that I usually don't get home until later in the evening, maybe 9:30, and by then my good intentions are out of gas.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So
Know that one.
I was able to some paradoxical gratitude that even though I was quarantining, I was able to deal with some things that had been sitting around for a considerable period of time. I was also able to um, contact some friends, participate in some Zoom AA meetings, uh, things that I wouldn't have done before.
It's an opportunity to slow down, isn't it? And I think a lot of us. I mean, you've been going, I think, probably most full steam of any of us during ever since the shutdowns.
Right.
Directly related, right?
Yes.
So I mean, if anything, you're as much a frontline responder as anybody at this point,
Yes.
mentally.
Yes.
So, but yeah, I mean, I caught up on a lot of TV, Jim,
Okay.
as I'm like, this is all I can do right now. I can't even play a video game. I don't want to do anything. I can't look at Twitter. Like, I don't have the attention. Like, the brain fog thing
Uh-huh.
is real. If you got it, no loss of taste or smell, by the way,
Ah,
none of that. And that's what made me, as soon as one of those happened, I'm like, yep, here we go. But everything is just like a head and chest cold.
okay.
Yeah, just it's crazy.
Well, for people out there, I want them to know that science is like magic, only it's real.
Yes.
Science is real. What are the facts? What do we know for sure?
Now, the discussions I have with people
Uh-huh.
relating even personal knowledge, like, people are frustrated because the facts they're presented, and this has happened with a lot of stuff with coronavirus, right? The facts they're presenting seem to, the guidelines change,
Yes.
the ideas of what happens next, how this is affecting people or could affect people down the line seems to change and be different depending on who you read. So I think that's the biggest problem, is navigating that and dealing with and some people are just to the brink frustrated with not having, even at this point, a clear enough answer for them, maybe, if that makes sense. And I don't know how to navigate that. I mean, to me, it's like, this is serious enough that we need to do X, Y, and Z. We know that. And we shouldn't dispute that to an extent. But then there's just so many variables
There are.
on
Then
top of it.
then we stick with what we do know for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And as in the 12-step world, we say more will be revealed.
Mm-hmm.
Find people that you trust their knowledge based on solid evidence.
Right. Right. Right.
And be patient and expect discomfort.
Mm-hmm.
Not just from COVID symptoms, expect some discomfort of isolation.
Yes.
Expect that. When people tell me I want to quit smoking, I'll say, okay, well, I think I'm going to get the patch. I'm going to get nicotine gum. I'm going to ask my doctor for Chantix. I'm going to get hypnotized, all these things. I said, here's my suggestion to you. Quit right now and expect discomfort.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Be ready for it.
Yes,
Yeah.
expect discomfort.
It's like you see that wave coming at you and you brace for it, right?
Yes.
Yeah. It's like it's a wave. That wave, like this wave, it's salt water. It's gonna get in my eyes. It's gonna get in my nose. It's gonna get in my mouth. It's gonna make everything taste funny
Mm-hmm.
after
Mm-hmm.
this.
Expect discomfort. It's like being pulled over for a speeding ticket.
Hmm.
Expect discomfort.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yep.
Right.
It's how you learn to deal with those things.
Right. It's
So.
how we deal with things. Oh, that's a Stoic philosophy, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the event, it's our reaction to them. We've talked many times about which end of the horse are you looking at. However, the horse doesn't move. This pandemic situation is the way it is. It's the way we want to perceive it, and we can choose to do that.
Yep.
Choose is a powerful word that we've used often. How has your getting the symptoms of and testing positive for COVID changed your perspective of this issue?
I don't know if it's changed my perspective aside from being able to say I have firsthand knowledge of it. You
Okay.
know what I mean?
Yes.
I mean, even I mean, I didn't think, even with I didn't think it was what it was, but even when I interact with somebody, like I was still extra careful. I'm still extra careful, even though I'm way past the window or anything like that. It's um, but then still it's passed on, right? Whatever I worked, the days leading into this, there were a lot of protocols. There were a lot of things that were done right, but it still happened, and that's probably the most frustrating part. Is you did all the steps, you did everything the experts told you, and you still did.
Yes.
Right? I mean, and that's the frustrating part of it. Is like I thought I did everything I was supposed to.
Well,
Right?
it's like being trained to drive defensively,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
you're as cautious and careful as you could possibly be, alert on the road.
Mm-hmm.
However, we have no control over people, well, other drivers.
Absolutely, and it could be absolutely, like we talked about one event that I worked in. I was like, you could have just touched something and then wiped your face, and I'm like, yes, because working an event, I'm just going right. You don't have time to stop, and
Uh-huh.
I was more at the conference this past week. I can tell you that, but you don't have time. It's like that I'm going to be running around for 2 or 3 hours and not wipe sweat from my face or
Sure.
something and not think about that, you know, of course it's going to happen, right?
Yes.
And it's so frustrating because Jim, other than like you coming in and maybe one or two other people, specifically for things that we're obviously, no, we don't have masks on here in the office, but like he's far away, you can't see the space over
Yes.
here, you know. Um, it was the only thing I've done, you know, for several days. And not to say that the thing that I did was where I got it, but I've did it is like I went and was around people for one time in 2 months. you know,
Yes.
but that's all it takes. It's really it takes one person, one contact, and it could have been there. It could have been at the taco stand. It could have been who knows? Who knows? It could be somebody handing me something at the store, or I passed by, or and that that's why they say to stay isolated as possible because that's the real answer if there's a real concern
Yes.
to this, and then you're playing the lottery of how are you going to react to it.
Well, again, we have to ask ourselves, what would a reasonable person do? What would a reasonable person do? And it's unrealistic and irresponsible to knowingly expose others to this virus.
I talked to my friend who not argued with me, but like had concern because I had to do events, and I'm like, listen, you know, I have friends that work at a grocery store every day, right? I was like, this is the job I need to do. my friend has medical conditions where he's like, I cannot get this thing. I was like, okay, you know, and I was like, I can't eliminate, I can only mitigate, has been my philosophy for several months when trying to do work. Having to travel for jobs and things like that. I can, is the place taking the protocols? Yes, they look like they are. Am I being extra safe when I'm there on location? I absolutely am. Is anybody coming in the studio? Hardly anybody is coming in the studio. I can count the people that have been in the studio in the last 6 months on like one hand. Okay, so, but I don't know. Hopefully, we get to open this up very soon.
You have to trust the science. You have to have, Mike, you have to have faith in something.
Mm-hmm.
And quite often, somebody would say something to me like, everybody that wears masks are sheep. And I would say, well, uh, that would mean that they have a shepherd, and everyone has a shepherd. Who's yours?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Everyone has a shepherd. Who's yours? That's what I ask people. Everybody has someone that they follow. Everybody has someone that's a mentor. And we have to ask ourselves always what I continuously ask people: check the facts. What do you know for sure? Or one of my standard lines is when somebody tells me something, I'll say, convince me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm good, I'm bad, this, that, I know this for sure. Convince me. Convince me. We have to have, so there's a line in the 12-step book that says, the message that can interest and hold these people must have depth and weight. The depth and weight is backed by solid practical experience, solid practical evidence, solid practical information that this has worked in the past
Mm-hmm.
and will work in the future. We have to have something called efficacy with something that does what it's supposed to do. How does something work? Well, I know it does. Well, convince me.
Mm-hmm.
Show me case studies. Show me the research.
Mm-hmm.
Show me people who have recovered. Show me. I want to talk to these people.
Yeah, yeah. People making plans on certain news articles that says this will be good by April. We'll be good by this. I was like, well, I can't make a plan for that. That's not definite. There's a lot of things that can happen.
That is wishful
So,
thinking.
absolutely, absolutely. No matter who's telling me, what scientist is telling you, it was like everybody. It's big business to have an opinion about how this thing goes right now.
Well, sure.
So,
Sure.
no matter what school they're from, no matter what facility, there is, hey, yeah, we'd love to be able to do that. It's not like I'm going to start planning open events and parties in here. I'm going to have a pizza party planned for April, ready to go. Like, no.
Well, it's like a sportscaster or a sports talk show host. If a sports talk show host agreed with every caller that called in, it'd be a pretty boring show,
Absolutely.
wouldn't it?
Absolutely. Discourse is the biggest,
sure,
the biggest goal out there.
Some people listen to those shows simply because they dislike the host so much.
I do watch. It's I guess a comedy punditry show, and I find it interesting. And I watch it specifically because I disagree with him. Because at least it's got me thinking about another side, right? And I see Twitter blow up. Why is this guy even on the air and talking to so and so and giving any credibility to this? And it's like, well, if you disagree with it, at least you know about it, and you know that other people have this opinion and have a base for the opinion. No matter how much they can be wrong in your eyes.
It's like Tom Brady, won 7 Super Bowls, and I'm sure on the last Super Bowl there was as many people tuning in to see him hoping he would lose than that he would win.
It becomes a whole other thing, of course. So, but anyways,
yes.
Either way, everybody's fine.
Yes,
we got through this.
We keep putting one foot in front of the other.
Absolutely.
So, what's a lesson that you've learned out of this, Mike? What would you have as a parting shot for today? What would you want our audience to leave with?
Once again, if you're struggling with the balance of this and trying to protect yourself from this, presuming you're not at something where you're like, if I get this, it's a problem. Um, a foregone conclusion of this is going to be a problem. Obviously, please be extra careful and responsible. But for everybody else that is still, I have to go to work, I have to do this, I have to do this. Again, I think that phrase, it's helped me a lot. You can't eliminate, mitigate. You can't eliminate the possibility of getting in a car accident if you drive anywhere, but you can mitigate it by being attentive, wearing your seatbelt, making sure you've checked your tires, on a regular basis, had your inspection. You mitigate the possibility of catastrophe, and I think that's what happens. So please wear your mask, social distance, don't do more than you have to. I often say, is this a thing I want to go do and have a chance of something bad happening and getting this? That is a question that gets asked anytime I go out. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Okay, I would suggest to people develop that attitude of paradoxical gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
What's right about this situation rather than the other way, and avoid placing yourself in a position to be vulnerable. Another old AA saying is that if you keep going to a barber shop, sooner or later you're going to get a haircut.
I
And
like that.
yes, yes.
I should start going to barber shops. I'm a little long in the tooth here, so
Why keep exposing yourself to something?
Mhm.
Because eventually it is going to happen.
Yes.
Okay, that's
Yes.
the law of averages. So as we end tonight, I want everyone out there to know that Mike and I are well and fine. And after every program, we offer a free prescription: fruits, nuts, and vegetables. Unplug your television and take up fishing. And for a truly mindful experience, we suggest that you fish without bait. Do a kindness for yourself and do a kindness for another. Forgive yourself and forgive another. Till all are free, none are free. Namaste, my friends.
Please check out our website at fishingwithoutbait.com, where you can listen to the show, comment on our discussions, and find out where you can subscribe to our podcast.
If you're interested in flying the colors of fishing without bait, click the shop icon on our website. We have clothing, mugs, cell phone cases, and so much more. Show the world that you fish without bait.
This show is a member of the Sorgatron Media Podcast Network. Find out more at sorgatronmedia.com.